My family mocked my little string hobby for a decade, sinking every penny into my sister's law degree. At my brother's graduation dinner, I gave him a paid-off house, and the truth of their secret plan to steal my money finally unraveled. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The fever had settled deep in my bones, a heavy, aching cold that had nothing to do with the winter air outside. I was on day 3 of a vicious flu, wrapped in every blanket I owned, when my phone buzzed on the nightstand. The screen lit up with a picture of my mother, Margaret. I groaned, letting it ring twice before conceding. My voice was a dry croak. "Hello. Elena, you sound terrible. Are you still sick?" Her voice was bright, a sharp contrast to the dull throb behind my eyes. "Hey, Mom. Yeah, it's a bad one, just resting." "Oh, that's a shame. Listen, I won't keep you. I know you're busy with your little hobby." I winced. "My business, Mom. It's just called a business." Right, right. Well, I was just calling because your sister's final tuition payment is due on the 1st, and your father and well, we're just a little short. You know how it is, with the property taxes and that new assessment. I pulled myself up on my elbows, the room spinning slightly. Short by how much? "Oh, it's nothing, really," she said, with the breezy tone she always used when she was about to ask for the impossible. "Just the last installment, 15,000. I choked on my own breath. 15? Mom, that's not a little short, that's a car. "Now, Alina, don't be dramatic," she snapped, the brightness gone. "This is your sister's future. This is Harvard Law, not some online knitting club. We've all had to make sacrifices. Your father and I remortgaged the house. The least you could do is pitch in. I know your little online shop doesn't make much, but surely you can spare something for your family." There it was, the dismissal. The little shop I had started from my garage 10 years ago. The hobby that now employed 12 people, occupied a 20,000-square-foot warehouse, and shipped to 40 different countries. The little shop that my family treated like a child's lemonade stand. For a decade, I had listened to this. I had sat at Thanksgiving dinners and listened to my father, Richard, toast our future legal eagle, Sophia, while I was asked if I was still selling string on the internet. I had watched my parents drain their retirement, sell my grandmother's jewelry, and leverage their entire lives for my sister, Sophia, who had absorbed their praise and money with the placid entitlement of a golden god. And me, I was Alina, the quiet one, the creative one, the one who had never asked for a thing. I paid my own way through state college by waiting tables. I built my business with my own savings and my own sweat. I worked 80-hour weeks while they were flying to Boston to take Sophia out for dinners I knew they couldn't afford. "Mom," I said, my voice shaking with a mixture of fever and a sudden glacial rage. I don't just have $15,000 lying around." This was a lie, of course. I had that in a checking account I used for petty cash, but it was the principle. "Well, I just don't know what to tell you, Alina," my mother sighed, a heavy, disappointed sound designed to break my heart. It had worked for 34 years. "Your father is so stressed. I'm worried about his health. This one last push will get Sophia over the finish line, then she can take care of all of us. It's a family investment." A family investment, that's what they called it, but I wasn't family. I was the auxiliary fund. "I'm sorry, Mom, I can't. I have payroll to make," I whispered. The line went silent for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was sharp, like chipped ice. I see how it is. Well, I hope you feel better, Alina. Some of us are trying to build a legacy." She hung up. I threw the phone onto the blankets and fell back against the pillows, my body shaking. But it wasn't the fever that made me feel cold. It was the realization that to my family, I wasn't a daughter. I was just a line of credit they hadn't managed to unlock yet. The silence in the room after the call was heavier than my illness. The click of my mother hanging up echoed in my ears. It was the sound of a door being slammed, a final, definitive rejection. My no wasn't just a refusal of money, it was a betrayal of the family narrative. Sophia was the star, and I was, at best, a supporting cast member. Today, I had refused to say my lines. My body ached, but my mind was suddenly, painfully sharp. The fog of the flu was replaced by a different kind of fog, the murky, unsettling realization that my mother's L wasn't an act of desperation. It was an act of expectation. My phone buzzed again, a text message, this time from Sophia. Mom says you're holding out. Don't be selfish, Alina. My future is the family's future. We're all counting on you to do the right thing. Holding out? Selfish. The words were so arrogant, so lacking in self-awareness that I almost laughed. Sophia, who hadn't worked a single day in her life that wasn't a prestigious, unpaid internship. Sophia, who still had her credit card bills paid by our father, she was calling me selfish. I thought back to a dinner a few months ago, just before I got sick. My father, Richard, a man who had only ever spoken to me about my business with a sort of bemused patronage, had suddenly taken an interest. So, Alina, he'd said, swirling the wine in his glass, this e-commerce thing of yours, it's doing well, I hear. I was surprised. It is, Dad. We're expanding our supplier network into Peru. Peru, and legally, how is that all structured? You're just a sole proprietorship. You really should have some liability protection, you know. He tapped his temple. As your father, and as a financial advisor, I worry about you. You're playing in a big pond now, honey. It's easy to get in over your head. At the time, I'd felt a small, pathetic flicker of hope. He was finally seeing me. He was worried about me. Oh, I'm not a sole proprietorship, Dad, I'd said brightly. I incorporated years ago. I'm an S-Corp. His smile tightened just for a second. An S-Corp? Well, good for you. But you're the only owner, right? It's all just you. Pretty much, I'd lied. It was a small, instinctive lie. The kind you tell when you're not sure why you're being asked. Now, lying in my sickbed, that conversation felt different. It wasn't interest. It was reconnaissance. He wasn't acting as a father, he was acting as a financial advisor, probing for weaknesses, for assets he could leverage. He was assessing my value for the family investment. I felt a wave of nausea that had nothing to do with the flu. They weren't just asking for a handout. They were planning. They were planning on my success, a success they had simultaneously mocked and coveted. My eyes drifted to a framed photo on my dresser. It was from 10 years ago, the day I signed the lease for my first 500-square-foot storage unit. I was 24, beaming, holding a set of keys. I'd sent the photo to my family. My mother had replied, "That's nice, dear. Sophia just got a for her first semester." I had built my company in their shadow. While they were celebrating Sophia's every a paper, I was learning about SEO, import tariffs, and logistics. While they were agonizing over her law school applications, I was negotiating with shipping carriers and hiring my first employee. I had done it all alone, quietly, diligently, while they looked right through me. They all thought I was just playing with yarn, but they had forgotten one crucial thing. They had forgotten who I was. They thought I was the pliable, creative daughter. They had forgotten that you cannot build a multi-million-dollar business from nothing by being soft. You cannot manage a global supply chain by being a pushover. You cannot handle a staff and a complex budget by being stupid. I had been quiet, yes, but I had not been asleep. I had been watching. I picked up my phone, my fingers trembling slightly. I ignored Sophia's text. Instead, I scrolled to a different number. My real financial advisor, a woman named Julia whom I'd hired 5 years ago and whom my father knew nothing about. I typed a message. "Julia, I have a bad feeling. Can you please, very discreetly, do a deep dive on my parents' financial situation? I need to know exactly what kind of debt we're talking about." I sent it, then I opened another message, this one to my brother, Ben. "Hey, be just checking in. Are you excited for your graduation dinner next week?" Ben, the other overlooked one. He was graduating with his bachelor's degree. a fact almost completely eclipsed by Sophia's looming law school graduation. He replied almost instantly. Hey, Elle, yeah, I guess. Mom's mostly just talking about Sophia's internship. But thanks for asking. Are you feeling better? A small, genuine smile touched my lips. Ben, at least there was Ben. The rage was settling into something colder, harder, something purposeful. My family thought I was their emergency fund. They were about to find out I was a fortress, and they were on the outside. The little side hustle was born from a place of quiet defiance. After I graduated from state college, an achievement met with a polite, "That's nice, dear," from my mother, I found myself back in my childhood bedroom. Sophia, despite being 7 years younger, already had the larger room, the one with the better view, because she needed the light to study. I was working a dead-end job at a local insurance office. Saving every penny, my family saw it as a temporary failure. "It's just until you find something real," my father would say, patting my shoulder. But I wasn't looking for a real job. I was building a war chest. My passion was artisan textiles. Rare yarns, hand-dyed silks, traditional weaving tools. I loved the history, the feel, the artistry. I started a small blog reviewing different fibers. Then I started selling small kits on Etsy. The insurance job paid for the first 50-pound shipment of merino wool from New Zealand. I stored it in boxes under my bed. The year I turned 25, I moved out. My mother, Margaret, was appalled. "But you could be saving so much money living here," she'd cried. "I need the space, Mom," I'd said, gesturing to the boxes filling the garage. "For your hobby," she'd scoffed. "Elena, you're not a child. It's time to let go of these playtime things. Your father and I are trying to get Sophia into that advanced summer program. We need to be serious." That was the word, serious. Sophia, with her debate clubs and pre-law societies, was serious. I, with my growing spreadsheets, my import licenses, and my burgeoning customer list, was playtime. My father, Richard, was quieter but in many ways more damaging. He was a financial advisor, a man who built his identity on being prudent and wise. When I brought him my first year's tax returns, showing a modest but real profit of $30,000, he'd glanced at the paper and sighed. "Elena, this is fine, it's good fun money. But it's not a career, you have no benefits, no 401k, the market is volatile, a business like this, it's a whim, one bad shipment and you're done." He slid the paper back to me. "I'm putting together a portfolio for Sophia, something solid, we're investing in her future. Now that's a sound investment." I never showed him my tax returns again. The next year, I cleared 6 figures. I quit the insurance job. I hired my first employee. I signed the lease on that first small warehouse. I sent the family a picture. That was the night my mother called to celebrate Sophia's 4. "Isn't it wonderful?" Margaret gushed, her voice bubbling. "A perfect grade point average. At that school, your father and I we're bursting with pride. We're taking her to Boston for the weekend to celebrate." "That's great, Mom. Did you see the picture I sent of the new warehouse?" "Oh, yes, dear, it looks big. Do be careful with those lease agreements. They can be tricky. Anyway, I have to run. Sophia needs a new suit for her awards dinner." The betrayal wasn't a single event. It was a decade of 1,000 tiny cuts. It was every "that's nice, dear." It was every conversation immediately rerouted to Sophia. It was the complete and utter invalidation of my life's work. Margaret, a part-time realtor, was obsessed with the appearance of success. A daughter at Harvard Law was a status symbol she could cash in at her garden club meetings. A daughter selling string online was an eccentricity, almost an embarrassment. Richard was the enabler. He controlled the money, and he funneled it all in one direction. He saw Sophia as an extension of his own financial acumen, a blue-chip stock that was guaranteed to pay dividends. He saw my business as a high-risk, low-reward penny stock, and he dismissed it not because it wasn't successful, but because he hadn't chosen it. It was outside his control. Sophia, for her part, simply believed them. She was the chosen one. She was smart, beautiful, and destined for greatness. She genuinely believed she was superior to me in every way. She treated my business with a sort of pitying disdain. "It's so cute," she'd said once, visiting my warehouse, "that you have all these little boxes to play with." I was standing in front of a pallet of goods worth more than her entire year's tuition. I just smiled and said, "It keeps me busy." The flu finally broke on a Thursday. I woke up feeling weak but clear-headed. My phone was buzzing. It was Julia, my advisor. "Are you sitting down, Alina?" she asked. "I'm in bed. What did you find?" "It's bad," she said flatly. "Worse than you thought. They remortgaged the house 2 years ago. The second mortgage. The interest rate is criminal. They also have 3 high-interest private loans, all taken out in the last 18 months. And Alina," Sophia co-signed them. "What?" "She's on the hook. All of it is tied to her future earning potential. Your parents leveraged her and she let them. The total debt, not including the primary mortgage, is just over $450,000. The final tuition payment they asked you for, it wasn't for tuition. That's already paid. It's to service the debt on the other loans. They're in a spiral, Alina. They're robbing Peter to pay Paul." I closed my eyes. They hadn't just been short. They had been lying. "And Alina," Julia said, her voice softer, "I looked at your father's advisory registration. He was censured by the board FIV. Years ago, a private censure, but it's there. For making unsuitable recommendations to elderly clients. He's not just a bad father, he's a bad advisor." My blood ran cold. This wasn't just familial favoritism. This was a pattern. My father, the prudent one, was a desperate man, and desperate men, I knew, did desperate things. Ben's graduation dinner was in 3 days. The talk my father wanted to have was no longer a question. It was an inevitability. They weren't just planning to ask me for help. They were planning to get it, one way or another. The turning point was no longer a decision. It was a necessity. I wasn't just protecting my business anymore. I was protecting myself from a predator, and he just happened to be my father. The sickness had passed, leaving behind a cold, hard clarity. The hurt that had defined my relationship with my family for 2 decades was gone, burned away by the fever and the facts. In its place was a chilling, calculating anger. I wasn't a daughter they had overlooked. I was a resource they had miscalculated. Julia's revelation about my father's censure cemented it. He wasn't just proud of Sophia, he was using her as a cover for his own financial failures. He had likely been bleeding his own clients dry with bad advice, and now that that well was running dry, he was turning to his own family. He had sunk everything into Sophia, not as an investment, but as a gamble, a high-stakes bet to save his own skin. And when her future earnings weren't materializing fast enough, he had turned his gaze to me. His probing questions at dinner, his advice to keep my business simple. It was all an attempt to keep me small, to keep my assets liquid and understandable, so he could eventually advise me to move them into a fund he controlled. He thought I was a sole proprietor. He thought I was his naive, creative daughter who didn't understand the real world of finance. He had no idea. The clever trap, as it were, wasn't something I had set for him. It was something I had built for me years ago to protect my life's work from the unknown. On the advice of Julia, not my father, I had structured my company with surgical precision. Alina's Artisans, LLC was not just an S-corp, it was an S-corp whose majority shares, 75% of the entire company, were held by the EMR Legacy Trust. An irrevocable trust. I was the trustee and the primary beneficiary, but I could not, even if I wanted to, simply dissolve it or hand over its assets. It was a fortress designed to protect the company from creditors, lawsuits, and, as it turned in, from greedy family members. My father couldn't absorb my company. He couldn't manage its profits. He couldn't touch a single thread of Peruvian yarn. The remaining 25% of the shares, they were in my personal portfolio, alongside my other investments, a portfolio my father had never seen. The phone call I had been dreading finally came that afternoon. It was my father. His voice was all honey and concern. "Elena, sweetheart, I heard you were under the weather. Feeling better, I hope." "Much better, Dad. Thanks for asking." "Wonderful, wonderful. Listen, your mother and I were thinking. Ben's graduation is on Saturday, and we're all so proud. But I'd love to have a little chat with you before that, just us, to discuss the future." The future, the family investment, Sophia's loans, it was all a script. "The future?" I asked, keeping my voice light. "What about it?" "Well, just family finances. You know, you've done so well with your business, and Sophia is about to graduate. It's time we all got on the same page as a family, consolidate our strengths. I have an idea for a new family fund that I think could be very beneficial for all of us. You, me, your sister, even Ben." A family fund, managed by him. I felt a chill. He was going to propose I liquidate my hobby and pour the cash into his new, desperate venture, which would, of course, be used to pay off Sophia's debts. "Dad, that sounds interesting, but I'm swamped this week, catching up from being sick." This was my new strategy. No more small lies, just inconvenient truths. My logistics manager is on vacation, and I'm handling the new import tariffs myself. A beat of silence. "Tariffs? Well, surely you can spare an hour for your father. This is important, Elena. It's about your sister." "Everything is about Sophia," I said, and the words were out before I could stop them. They weren't angry, they were just tired. He sighed, the sound of a patient man dealing with a difficult child. "That's not fair, Elena. We are a family. We support each other. Your sister has worked so hard. Now it's our turn to support her. And in turn, she will support us. That's how it works. I'll text you. We'll find a time." He hung up, not waiting for a reply. The arrogance was breathtaking. He still believed he was in control. I hung up and immediately called my personal B. "Anchor, David, hi, it's Elena. I need to do something. I need to buy a property, all cash, and I need to do it by Friday." "Elena, that's aggressive. Where?" "It's for my brother, Ben. He just got a job at that new tech incubator downtown. I need a one-bedroom or a studio condo, something within walking distance. And I need the deed in his name only, in my hand by Saturday morning." David, who had seen my accounts grow from 5 figures to 8, didn't question my motives. He just said, "I have 3 listings that fit the bill. I'll send them to you in 10 minutes. We can wire the money today and have the keys by tomorrow." "Perfect," I said. "And David, my name is not to appear on any of the public-facing documents. Just his. This is a gift." I hung up and looked at the list of properties. I picked one, a beautiful, modern condo with floor-to-ceiling windows. I wired $515,000 from my personal investment account, the 25% my father didn't know existed. The investigation was over. My father's plan was clear. My mother's complicity was clear. Sophia's entitlement was clear. But my plan was just beginning. They wanted to talk about a family investment. Fine, we would, but we would do it on my terms at my chosen time. Ben's graduation dinner. They had planned to use the dinner as a prelude to my financial absorption. Instead, I would use it as the stage for my liberation. They had forgotten about Ben. They had forgotten about me. They were about to get a very expensive reminder. My father, true to his word, was relentless. He texted me, "Good morning, Elena. Do you have time for that chat today?" He called me at lunch. "Just checking in, sweetheart. Let's lock down a time." He was a dog with a bone, a salesman on the scent of a commission. His desperation was rolling off him in waves, thinly veiled by his paternal, just looking out for you tone. I knew I couldn't put him off until the dinner. He was too agitated. He would corner me, or worse, cause a scene. I needed to control the narrative, and that meant meeting him, but on my terms. I needed to shatter his confidence, just enough to make him unsteady before the main event. I finally agreed to meet him at his office on Friday afternoon, the day before the graduation dinner. "I can give you 30 minutes, Dad," I said on the phone. I have to be at the warehouse by 4 to sign for a freight delivery. Wonderful, see. That's my girl, he said, relieved. I walked into his office, a space I'd always found intimidating. It was all dark wood, leather-bound books he'd never read, and framed photos of Sophia. Sophia at her debate championship. Sophia in her prep school uniform. Sophia at her Harvard acceptance day. There was one small, dusty photo of Ben and me at a pumpkin patch, circa 1999. Elena, you look wonderful, much better, he said, closing the door. He sat behind his large desk, steepling his fingers, the picture of a wise financial guru. I'm feeling better, thanks. I didn't sit. I stood, my purse on my shoulder, giving the distinct impression I was ready to leave. Good, good, so this family fund I mentioned, he launched into his pitch. It was full of buzzwords: synergy, leveraging assets, multi-generational wealth, securing the family legacy. It was a practiced, polished speech, the same one he had probably given to those elderly clients he'd swindled. The plan was exactly as I'd suspected. He proposed that I invest my company's excess profits into this new fund, which he would manage. For a very small family fee, of course, he added with a wink. This fund would then strategically allocate capital to pressing family needs. What needs, Dad? I asked, my voice flat. Well, naturally, our first priority is to eliminate the associated debts from Sophia's education. It's a heavy burden, Elena, and you've been so fortunate with with your business. It's only right that you help carry that burden. We are a family, after all. Your success is our success. There it was, my success is our success. So, you want me to give you my profits so you can pay off Sophia's loans, I clarified. He winced at the bluntness. It's not. It's an investment, Elena, an investment in your sister. When she's a full partner, she'll be making 7 figures. The return will be astronomical for all of us. I see. I let the silence hang in the air. He was smiling, waiting for me to agree, to be the good, pliable daughter. That's an interesting idea, Dad, I said, walking closer to his desk. But there's a problem. His smile faltered. A problem? My business isn't a sole proprietorship, like you thought. I watched his eyes. It's an S-corp in my business. It isn't really mine to invest. The color drained from his face. What do you mean? Of course it's yours. No, not really, I said, almost conversationally. 75% of my company's shares have been held in the EMRL Legacy Trust for the last 5 years. I'm the trustee, but I can't just liquidate the assets and give them to you. The trust's charter is very specific. It's to ensure the long-term health and growth of the company. Paying off personal loans for a family member? That's not on the list. He stared at me. The mask of the wise father was gone. In his eyes, I saw the man who had been censured by the board. The gambler. A trust, he stammered. You set up an irrevocable trust. Yes, 5 years ago. Who advised you to do that? His voice was rising, cracking with disbelief and fury. You went behind my back. Behind your back? Dad, you're not my financial advisor. You've never been my financial advisor. You told me my business was a whim. You told me to be careful. So I was. I hired a professional. A professional? He stood up, his face reddening. You little fool, you've locked up everything. Do you have any idea what you've done? Your mother and we've been counting on you. Counting on me for what? I shot back, my own voice rising. To be your secret bank, to clean up the mess you made. I know about the second mortgage, Dad. I know about the private loans. I know you're in over your head. He looked as if I had slapped him. How dare you? You have no right to look into my private affairs. And you have no right to look into mine, I pointed at him. You went through my mail, didn't you? Back when I lived at home. That's how you knew about my revenue. You've been planning this for years. He didn't deny it. His poorly executed threat came next. You will undo this, Elena. You will find a way to break that trust, or I swear, I will tell your brother what you've done, how you've abandoned this family. It was so weak, so pathetic, I almost laughed. Tell him what? That I protected my life's work from you? That I refused to be your bailout? You think I'm the one who looks bad in that story. I turned and walked to the door. I have to go, Dad. I have a delivery to sign for. A real one, from Peru. I opened the door. I'll see you, Mom, and Sophia at Ben's dinner tomorrow. We should all be there to celebrate him, don't you think? I left him standing in his office, his grand plan shattered, his face a mask of apoplectic rage. He was a fraud, and now he knew that I knew. The first shot had been fired. The explosion I had detonated in my father's office sent shrapnel flying through the family communication lines. I had barely gotten back to my warehouse, my hands still shaking on the steering wheel, before my phone lit up. It was my mother. I let it go to voicemail. A text message immediately followed. Elena, your father just called me. I am disgusted. Absolutely disgusted by your selfishness. Call me this instant. I silenced my phone and threw it in my desk drawer. I had a business to run. For the next 3 hours, I focused on my work. I checked the manifest for the Peruvian wool, I approved a new marketing campaign, and I reviewed the third quarter projections. Every spreadsheet I read, every number I crunched, felt like another brick in the fortress I had built. My work, the hobby they'd mocked, was my sanctuary. When I finally pulled my phone from the drawer, it was a minefield. 3 missed calls from Mom, 2 missed calls from Dad, and 1 from Sophia. There was a long, rambling voicemail from my mother, a masterwork of emotional manipulation. It veered wildly from tearful pleading. How could you do this to your father? He's so stressed, his heart. To bitter accusations. After all we gave you, we let you live in our house for 2 years, you ungrateful child. It was a performance, and for the first time in my life, I felt nothing but pity. She was so desperate to maintain the illusion of the perfect family. She was willing to sacrifice me to do it. Then I listened to Sophia's. It was not a performance. It was a declaration of war. Elena, I don't know what kind of sick, jealous game you're playing, but you need to stop it. Dad said you've hidden all your money in some legal thing. You are just jealous. You're jealous that I'm a success. You're jealous that Mom and Dad are proud of me. You're just a bitter old maid with a stupid, worthless hobby, and you're trying to ruin my life because you have nothing. She hung up with a click. A stupid, worthless hobby. I saved the voicemail. The case was built. The manipulation, the entitlement, the outright theft they had been planning, it was all out in the open. They were no longer hiding behind smiles and fatherly advice. This was who they really were. A desperate man, a hysterical enabler, and a spoiled, vicious child. My phone rang again. This time, the name on the screen made my heart ache. Ben. I answered immediately. Hey, B. Elena, what is going on? His voice was small, confused. He was at his apartment near his college, probably packing F. Or the weekend. Mom just called me. She was crying, like really crying. She said you and Dad had a huge fight and that you're refusing to help the family. She said you're hoarding your money and turning your back on Sophia. I don't get it. I thought your shop was just, you know. A little side hustle. I finished for him, my voice gentle. Yeah, he said, abashed. Is that not true? This was the part that hurt. Ben wasn't malicious. He was just collateral damage. He had been fed the same narrative I had, only he had no reason to doubt it. He was the other one they overlooked, the quiet, agreeable son who got decent grades and didn't cause any trouble. He was the audience in their grand play, and he'd believed it all. Ben, I said, leaning my head against my office window. It's complicated, but it's not what they're telling you. They're in trouble, bad trouble, and they were planning on using my money to fix it. Money I earned. They didn't ask me, Ben, they expected me, and when I told them they couldn't have it, they broke. He was silent for a long time. They're always like this about Sophia, he finally whispered. Like she's the only one that matters. I know. Are you okay, Elle? That simple question, are you okay, was something my parents or sister had not asked me in years. It broke something loose in me. I am now, I said, my voice thick. Listen, about the dinner tomorrow. It's probably going to be tense, but it's your graduation. I want you to know that I am so proud of you. No matter what happens, I want you to remember that. Thanks, Elle, that means a lot. I'll see you tomorrow, okay? And B, wear a nice suit, it's a big night. Okay, he said, see you tomorrow. I hung up, my resolve now absolute. My clever trap was no longer just about defending myself. It was about showing Ben, the only person in my family who was still reachable, what real support looked like. It wasn't about leveraging his future or sinking him into debt. It was about giving him a foundation, no strings attached. The final piece of my plan clicked into place. I had the deed. I had the voicemails. I had the facts from Julia. And I had a family that was walking into an ambush of their own making. They were expecting a cowed, guilt-ridden daughter to show up at that dinner, ready to negotiate. They were about to meet the CEO. The restaurant was my mother's choice, of course. It was offensively expensive, all dark wood, hushed waiters, and chandeliers that dripped crystal. It was a stage. It was a place you went to perform success. My father looked pale and stressed, tugging at his collar. My mother was overcompensating, her smile brittle and bright, her voice loud as she gushed to the server about my son, the graduate. And Sophia? Sophia was magnificent in her arrogance. She was dressed in a sleek black dress that probably cost 2 months of my first-year salary. She looked at me with open contempt, a little smirk playing on her lips. She thought she had won. She thought the combination of my father's anger and my mother's tears would have broken me, that I would show up ready to surrender. Ben, bless him, looked handsome in his new suit, but deeply uncomfortable. He kept glancing between me and our parents, sensing the static in the air. I remained calm. I was pleasant. I ordered a sparkling water and complimented Ben on his suit. This threw them off. My mother kept trying to catch my eye with a look of deep, pained disappointment. My father refused to look at me at all. Well, my mother said, raising her champagne flute. A toast to our brilliant son, Ben. We are so proud of his achievements. And of course, to our brilliant Sophia, who is about to take the world by storm. Ben's smile wavered. Even his toast was co-opted. We all clinked glasses. And, my mother continued, setting her glass down and fixing me with a hard stare. To family, and to remembering what's important, to supporting each other no matter what, because in the end, family is the only thing that matters. It was a warning, a threat wrapped in a Hallmark card. You're so right, Mom, I said, my voice calm and clear. The table went quiet. Family is what matters, supporting each other, celebrating each other's achievements, all of them. I turned to my brother. Ben, I am so incredibly proud of you. I know you've been so worried about what comes next, about getting a job, about the housing market, about having to move back home. Ben blushed and looked down. It's a lot, Elle. Well, I said. I reached down to the briefcase I had placed by my chair. I pulled out a sleek, black leather portfolio. I wanted to make sure you could focus on your new job without worrying about all that, so I took care of it. I slid the portfolio across the table to him. What is this? He stammered. Happy graduation, B. It's the deed to a condo, 2 blocks from your new office. It's in your name, and it's paid in full. Time stopped. Ben's hand, reaching for the portfolio, froze. He just stared at it, his mouth slightly open. Sophia, who had been sipping her champagne, sputtered. You what? My mother's proud, brittle smile dissolved. It didn't just fade, it collapsed, her face sagging into a mask of pure, unadulterated shock. My father went sheet white. His eyes darted from the portfolio to my face. He did a frantic, silent calculation, the numbers spinning behind his eyes. He understood. He understood the amount of money I had just given away, money that wasn't in the trust, money he'd had no idea existed. He understood in that single instant the true, vast scale of the wealth he had tried to steal. He leaned across the table, his voice a low, furious hiss that only I could hear. You weren't supposed to do this. That money, we were counting on that for Sophia's loans. The title line, the thesis, the entire truth of my life, whispered by a desperate, beaten man. I didn't whisper back. My voice was level, not loud, but it cut through the restaurant's quiet murmur like a knife. Every person at that table, and the 2 tables next to us, heard every word. "What money, Dad?" I asked, looking him dead in the eye. "My little side hustle money, the string hobby you all laughed at for 10 years. I turned my gaze to my mother and sister, who were both staring at me in horror. "For a decade, you too have mocked me. You called my company a joke. You called me a bitter old maid with a stupid hobby. You thought I was a failure." I leaned forward. "Well, that joke did 8 figures in revenue last year. That hobby employs 12 people. That hobby just bought Ben a $500,000 condo, in cash, with money you didn't even know I had." I turned back to my father. His face was gray. "You weren't counting on my money, Dad. You were planning to steal it. You ran your own finances into the ground chasing her dream." I gestured to Sophia, who looked like she was going to be sick. "You remortgaged your house. You took out loans you couldn't pay. You're drowning. And you saw me as your secret bailout." I looked at all 3 of them, this tribunal of jealousy and greed. The family investment wasn't Sophia, it was me, and you just lost everything. Ben, who had been frozen, finally opened the portfolio. He stared at the deed, at his name, at the address. He looked up, his eyes shining with tears. He looked at my parents, his expression hardening as my words sank in. Is that true?" he asked them, his voice shaking. You were going to steal from her." My mother opened her mouth, but no sound came out. My father just stared at me with pure, unadulterated hatred. Sophia was the one who broke. She owes us," she shrieked, pointing a trembling finger at me. "She had it all and she just hid it." "I didn't hide it, Sophia," I said, standing up. "I earned it. While you were investing in your future, I was building mine. You just never bothered to look." The public humiliation was total. It was silent, complete, and devastating. Ben stood up, clutching the portfolio to his chest. He looked at my parents, then at me. And he made his choice. "I need some air," Ben said, his voice raw. He looked at our parents, his expression one I'd never seen from him before, not anger, but a deep, profound disappointment that was far worse. He turned and walked out of the restaurant, not looking back. My mother started to get up. "Ben, wait, sweetheart." I put my hand on her arm and she flinched. "Leave him alone, Mom. You've done enough." I dropped a few $100 bills on the table, more than enough to cover the champagne and appetizers they'd ordered. "This is the last dollar you will ever get from me." My father was silent, a man carved from stone. Sophia was crying, not with sadness, but with rage. "You've ruined everything," she hissed at me. "No, Sophia," I said, pulling my purse onto my shoulder. "You all did this yourselves. You just thought I would be the one to pay the bill." I walked out of the restaurant, leaving the 3 of them sitting in the wreckage of their grand plan. I found Ben on the sidewalk, leaning against a pillar, staring at the deed in his hands. "Elena," he said, his voice thick. "A condo, paid in full. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," I said, standing next to him. "It's yours. Congratulations, Ben, you earned it." They really did that?" he asked, looking at me. "All that, about your money, about Sophia's loans?" "They did." I took a deep breath. "I have the voicemails if you want to hear them." He shook his head, a look of disgust on his face. I believe you, all those years. God, I was so stupid. I believed it, that you were just, playing W. "Ith string," I finished. We shared a small, sad smile. "I'm going with you," he said, straightening up. He slid the portfolio into his suit jacket. I'm not going back in there. I don't think I can ever go back." He walked back into the restaurant's entryway, where our parents and Sophia were now standing, clearly in the middle of a furious, whispered argument. Ben walked right past them to the coat check, retrieved his coat, and walked back out, holding the door for me. He didn't say a word to them. The drive to my apartment was quiet. Ben just stared out the window. When we got inside, he finally let it all out. He cried, and I held him, my little brother, the other one they'd left behind. The aftermath was swift and brutal. Sophia's student loans, the ones my parents had co-signed and the ones she had taken herself, all came due within 6 months of her graduation. Without my bailout, they defaulted. My father, Richard, was ruined. The loan companies went after his assets, and his censure became a public suspension when his creditors started digging. He lost his advisory license. My mother, Margaret, was forced to sell their house, the house I grew up in, at a massive loss, just to cover a fraction of the debt. They moved into a small, bleak rental apartment across town. Margaret's social life evaporated. The prestige she had built her life on was gone. Sophia, our golden child, had a rude awakening. With a mountain of non-dischargeable debt and a co-signing credit history that was now radioactive, she couldn't get a loan for a car, let alone an apartment. The high-powered corporate law firms she dreamed of wouldn't touch her. She was forced to take a grueling, low-paying public defender job in a different city, just to make the minimum payments that would haunt her for the rest of her life. The family investment had yielded nothing but ruin. And me, I helped Ben move into his new condo. I used my string money to invest in a small software startup idea he had and my business network to connect him with the right people. His idea took off. He was happy. He was free. Months later, I was sitting in my real office, the big, bright corner office of my new, larger warehouse. I was looking over a design for a new line of silks from Japan. Ben stopped by with coffee, just to say hi. "How's it going, boss?" he joked. "It's going well, B," I smiled. "It's going really well." My phone buzzed. It was a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Elena, it's your mother. Your father is sick. You need to help us." I looked at the message for a long moment. Then I deleted it, blocked the number, and went back to work. I felt no anger, no sadness. For the first time in my life, I just felt peace. The books were balanced. The debt was paid, just not by me.